Guys, as you may already know, the war in Ukraine has broken way out of containment from just a regional conflict. I announced this back when Nord Stream 1 and 2, when Biden blew up the Nord Stream 1 and 2 pipelines. But now things are really out of containment. Before Russia could even issue a military response, now they've taken out, the West has taken out the Crimean Bridge, and apparently by a missile, United States missile, apparently. So, but I don't know if you've seen this yet, and I want to run a couple of headlines by you here that I don't think I'm seeing this in the Western media. Guys, in Moscow over the weekend, there are chants on the streets of Moscow saying, "Nuke Washington." So while Americans and Westerners may think that the prospect of nuclear war is something that's just inconceivable, I'm telling you it's not. I'll more about that in a second here. But so the Russians towed a nuclear missile right in front of the American embassy in Moscow. So they're trying to send a message. They are trying to communicate in the strongest language they possibly can. Don't push us into a nuclear war, because as I've stated in a previous video, they've already declared res judicata, and on the issue of nuclear weapons, the matter has already been decided by the United States using nuclear weapons to defend their homeland, our homeland. That the matter has already been decided. The legal precedent for that has already been established. So for those who think that this can't happen, I'm telling you, it's the second horseman of the apocalypse. And I do urge you to go look at some of the videos I made on the four horsemen. Guys, and I'll tell you, and I believe this, and if I didn't believe it, I wouldn't have issued potassium iodide to some of my kids that I could get in touch with. And I wouldn't have EMP protected my house and my vehicles, which I did do. You know why? Because I see it coming, and I hope that God opens your eyes too to prepare for what's coming. Not just the second horseman, but the first, second, third, and fourth, and the things that come after that. Because, guys, you're living in these times that were spoken of really clearly in the Bible. I mean, why do you think God articulated this stuff the way he did? He did it so that you would understand it when it's happening. That's how I see it. And so it's time to go deep with God. Jesus said, if you're lukewarm, he'll spit you out of his mouth. This is no time for sitting on the fence and or counting on church membership or being indifferent or slacking in any way in your life. This is a time to get really serious in every way you possibly can. Don't ignore the reality of what is about to happen. So, yes, the world's about to change. And it's going to change in a way that is far more profound than that which occurred after 9/11. Far more profound. And that was just a warning, by the way. What happened on 9/11? Go listen to Jonathan Cahn about the Harbinger. That was a warning shot across the bow. But here comes the real deal. I'm telling you, the axe is laid at the root. And this is a period of time referred to, if you go read it in context of Revelation chapter 6, the wrath of the Lamb. And this is just, I know it's uncomfortable and a bit awkward for people that have never gotten into the subject of the judgment of God, like from a biblical perspective, about how God does use wars, sword, famine, pestilence, and disease to judge the nations. As surely as God blesses nations who make him their God, and as surely as God blesses the righteous, he also he enters into times of judgment when at the fullness of time, when patience runs out, when their sin is complete. You know, remember God showed Abraham that his children, his descendants, would be slaves in a foreign land for 400 years, and then that God would lead them out of that foreign land, Egypt, right? And why? Why would they have to stay there for 400 years as slaves? Because it says the sin of the Amorite was not yet complete. So God allowed the clock to run out, and finally did enter into that period of judgment with the Egyptians and the gods of the Egyptians. That's also what this was about too. What are the gods of this culture? Because God is getting ready. Are the gods of this culture the Egyptian gods? What are the gods of this culture? Because God is getting ready to judge. And the Bible actually there's a passage, I think Isaiah 28, that calls this when God enters into judgment like this, his strange work. And that is interesting because it's not something that God prefers to do. In an ideal world where man hadn't sinned and like messed things up, God wouldn't be having to do this. But here we are, guys, and I want to urge you, number one, seek refuge right now in the shelter of the Lord. Listen to him. Take heed. Hearken to his voice, draw near to the Lord. This is no time for slacking. Okay, guys, so, here's a statement that came from the Russian State Duma over the weekend, and I'm going to quote it exactly, the translation in English. The terrorist attack on the Crimean Bridge is no longer just a provocation, but a declaration of war without rules, announces Russia's State Duma. It's a declaration of war, and it's a declaration of war without rules. I want you to just think about that for a second. Guys, and for some, many in America anyway, I don't know about Western Europe, but in America, conservatives especially seem to be like thinking that Putin's a communist. Guys, the communists are in the White House and the World Economic Forum. Antifa's in the White House. These are communist revolutionaries. Klaus Schwab has a bust of Vladimir Lenin, the mass murderer, in his office. Where do you think the communists are? And why do you think the communists that really exist today are so angry at Russia? Guess why? Because Russia, they'll never forgive Russia for abandoning the Leninist pipe dream of a utopia on Earth. That's what's really going on here, guys. So I want to probably go back in time here and tell you something I have noticed. And again, I'm going to go back. I'm going to tell you about the first time I ever went behind the Iron Curtain, and it's something I noticed right away. I found myself, I'm thinking of a time when I went to, it was 1985, in one of the satellite countries. And in the Cold War, right? And out in front of a residential elementary school, the children had made this beautiful, chalk painting with all different colors of chalk, and it took up the whole, width of the street, and probably went for 20, 30 meters or so, square, let's say. And it was big, and they did a great job on it. Here's what it was, though. It was a chalk drawing in all colors of the Earth, the globe, right? And when we look at the globe, at least as North America, when we look at the globe, we see there's North America and there's Central and South America. Well, their map is sort of centric to their life over there, right? So this was Bulgaria, actually, and so it showed like the center of the globe was Bulgaria, and it showed missiles flying over the horizon with United States flags on them, landing like nuclear missiles, right? Like a bunch of them flying. The children drew this in the street, obviously at the direction of their teachers, right? This was communist propaganda. But it showed the drawing showed Bulgaria getting attacked by U.S. nuclear weapons. So I just want to point this out, guys. The people in the East Bloc countries think very differently than we do. When I saw that, I thought, man, you guys are in luck, because people in America they couldn't find Bulgaria on a map, right? That's what I was thinking. But to them, and let me just point this out too, they're not under communism right now. It's no longer the Warsaw Pact over there. But these people were brought up, not the younger generation, but the generation before that. They're still alive. This is most of the people living in these countries were brought up at a time, for instance, all the entire culture of Eastern Europe was militarized. In fact, it had been militarized ever since the end of World War II. It just never demilitarized. It's been under martial law right up until the Berlin Wall came down, and up until the revolution in Romania, and they started having some democratic changes. But here's how militarized it was. I'm just going to give two examples to keep this video kind of short here. One is all the playgrounds in the schools were themed in military theme. Even at elementary schools. So the playground equipment was tanks, like fighter aircraft, bombers, bunkers, Navy ships, all the playground equipment. It wasn't like Minnie and Mickey, okay, like maybe over here, right? It was everything that was geared toward war. And what kind of war? Nuclear war. So in these countries, guys, also I'd point out something too, is that Now I'm thinking about a different country, Albania. Two things I want to mention about Albania. So in the capital city, Tirana, and I'm sure it's still this way, I haven't been there in many years, but in the capital city, you can just walk right downtown alongside the river on both sides, and there are fallout shelters. Now, when I was there, they had abandoned communism, and all these fallout shelters had become latrines, public, latrines. And but they had two sets of doors, like a blast door, to survive the the nuclear blast, and then fallout protection beyond that. Guys, the way people over there think about the prospect of nuclear war is far different from the way people here think. And I mean, the people here, just seems to me, are like fiddling while Rome is burning, right? I mean, so there's such a disconnect. It's hard for me to understand the degree to which Americans, especially, are in denial about not just World War III, but the four horsemen of the apocalypse. Now I'm talking to the church. Why is it that most people in the church can't see that the mark of the beast has been introduced? It does mark the hand, which in Aramaic covers the entire arm. The forehead, the Greek word, because the New Testament was written in Koine Greek, literally means the area center between the eyes, which is precisely, it's actually not this, it's right here. Literally, now I'm talking about the literal meaning, is this part right here where that cloning technology is inserted. So we're, with those crazy, guys, I want to point something else out too. So, and here's just real quick, some off the head, things here. When I was going back and forth a lot into Pogradec, Albania, during the Ponzi War, all this military and even training equipment came available. You just pick it up off the ground. But one of the things that people in the church tried to get me to bring back to the kids in my street, I was always playing with the kids in the street and stuff too back then, because I have 6 kids, right? So they gave me a bunch of wooden potato mashers, stick grenades. Okay, like if you watch an old World War II movie, it's the kind of grenades where the Germans used them. They're like, there's a wooden handle, and then the explosive part. And you twist the handle and you throw it. Well, anyway, so they have a handle so you can apply the principle of leverage and really huck that thing way out there, right? So they had all these, wooden training grenades for the elementary school kids. I mean, think about that. And the high schoolers too, I'm sure. But so these are countries, maybe not the present generation, but their parents and their grandparents, they all are not only prepared for nuclear war, they're mentally prepared for it. Where here, the people are in denial. I mean, not only this, here's one other thing that I've noticed from working, traveling, and living over there. And I've never shied away from the topics of politics and geopolitics and history, things like this, get people's different perspectives. But another thing I have noticed is that the American typically tends to think that nobody wins a nuclear war. And in the East, they don't think like that. They think, what do you mean nobody wins? What an odd statement. When has there ever been a war where nobody wins? Of course there's a winner. So their mindset is, no, if it happens, there's going to be a winner and there's going to be a loser. Of course, people get killed on both sides. But what emerges is a side that wins. And let me tell you, they are prepared to do that in a way that we are not. And again, the main defense here is Jesus Christ. The main defense is the blessing of God. The main defense is righteousness, which we don't have. We're not in a good position. We set up a puppet government in that country, Ukraine, and it is facilitating people like the Bidens, the Pelosi's, the Romneys, and the Kerrys to rake in money hand over fist through illicit energy deals, human trafficking, child trafficking, biolabs, money laundering, and I could probably go on and on. The weapons trade is just off the hook over there, and guess who's guilty for that? It's not the Russians. And by the way, the fact that the Russians have been ethnically cleansed in eastern Ukraine for 8 years, and we look the other way, and then get on a high horse here about supporting Ukraine. If you got a support Ukraine thing, I'd rip that right off the wall or wherever you have it posted, because you know what? I think you're probably incurring guilt if you keep that up there. And I don't mind supporting, I do support the civilians in any country that want to avoid war. But guys, think about what you might be doing unwittingly, and that you may be actually getting on the wrong side here with something. So, you know, it's not the Eastern Ukrainians that have been persecuting the Ukrainians. It's not the ethnic Russians in Eastern Ukraine that have been persecuting the Ukrainians for the last 8 years. It's the opposite. Ukraine is a country where they don't tolerate political opposition, and they beat people up, they disappear people, they murder people, they kidnap people. And there's been a campaign for 8 years that's gone largely unreported in the West of ethnic cleansing. And finally, Russia just said, we've had it. When Ukraine announced they were going to go in there and just make an end to the breakaway republics that are exercising their right of self-determination, when it became evident that the Ukraine, Kiev, was going to go on the offensive and go after men, women, and children in eastern Ukraine, then Russia launched their Special Military Operation, or SMO. And if you look at it, all their equipment has the letter Z on it. Well, the letter Z is not in the Cyrillic alphabet. I mean, they have a letter for Z, the sound that makes Z. But the Z, the zigzag, letter that we have in the Latin alphabet is not something they have in their alphabet. So why did they do that? And here's what I believe. Because the name of their operation is Z for Zelensky, because they know Zelensky is a Western psychological warfare operation. He's a homoerotic actor. He's been placed there to capture the hearts and the minds, not of the Ukrainians, really, but of the Westerners. They know what makes the Westerner tick, and they're trying to get support for war against Russia. So Zelensky is a psyop. Zelensky himself, what country has a president that goes around every single day in a green T-shirt doing photo ops? Guys, this is a psychological operation, the Zelensky presidency. By the way, this is interesting too. So, Zelensky, it means green. That's just kind of a side note here. Zeleno, zeleny. The root word there is the color green, just out of, let's put it where it fits. Psychological operation. Guys, so these people have been brought up in a culture where they not only have a cultural memory of enduring world wars that go back, for a long time. The Mongols, the Turks, the World War I, World War II, the Napoleonic Wars. Remember, Napoleon went all the way to Moscow too. And so this is what's going on. And what looks to me is that this is going to result. Russia's not going to lose this, guys. They have the home team advantage. Their nuclear arsenal is bigger than ours, and it's more ready than ours is. It's also more modern than ours. And Western weapons are being used to kill Russian soldiers, and the Russian people have had enough. And while the Western media may report that Putin's in danger of getting overthrown and that he doesn't have the support, guys, he's got the support of his people. And whereas here, it seems to me that half the country is brain dead and just morally degenerate, ignorant. We are in the decline of an empire that is about to be judged. And that's what God does. He judges countries that reach a level of moral decline and have made their decision to abandon Jesus Christ. A country that abandons God and institutionalizes pedophilia, spirit cooking, and all the other evil stuff that this illegitimate government we do have right now has endorsed and institutionalized, is a country that will not be defended by God in a time of war. It ain't going to happen. So I'm telling you, better batten down the hatches and be praying about what you're supposed to do here. So, and it's really awkward. I mean, I have to go into the blast zone today because that's where my work is. But guys, go deep in prayer and search the scriptures. Think about the things I'm telling you. And yeah, so I think I'm going to break this video off right here. and get on with this day, guys. But guys, you're also, let me put it in another more exciting and more upbeat perspective, I guess, if I can. And that is that you were chosen by God to live in this time. So what type of person, let's focus on what type of people we need to be at this time. God wants us to overcome. And he wants us also to overcome by the word of our testimony. That means making a confession, standing with him, and also by bearing fruit, bearing his image, and occupying until he comes. So, and I want to encourage you with that. So, guys, I wanted to get this out there and have you guys be praying about what's about to happen. So God bless you. We'll be in touch very soon, and please like, share, and subscribe.